All right. Thank you for that, Ash. Appreciate you. Let me know we're having some technical difficulties, but we're back. This is the strategy show. We'll look at last night's slate. We'll look at today's slate. And then on the pre-lock show, we'll talk about what we're actually doing on this slate. If you're interested, click the link in the description. Feel free to use the promo code if you want a 10% discount. If not, that's fine too. All right, y'all. Last night was an interesting one. Let's see. Where's the 100K winning lineup? Here we go. More importantly than just the winning lineup from last night, let's look at my guy Kaboom. Y'all see him in here usually pretty often. If he doesn't make this show, he usually makes the pre-lock show. He won $1,000 last night in his single entry tournament. Congrats, man. Love seeing you have some success. Love seeing you so close to taking down a contest. Awesome night. I had a solid night too. We got a decent bit right. So yeah, good night. I mean, not as good as Wednesday. Was it Wednesday? Yeah, not as good as Wednesday night, but still a profitable night, so I'll take it. This was the $100,000 winning lineup. We had Spencer Dinwiddie in there. He was a core play. Malik Monk was in there. I had some Malik Monk, but wasn't really a guy I prioritized. Gary Trent Jr. was a core play. Or I had a lot of exposure to him. If he wasn't, still no sound. Grayson, you're saying you can't hear me? If someone else can let me know if you can't hear me, I might just end the broadcast and just restart it. Anyone else? Okay, good. I'm good. Okay. I really didn't want to have to restart it. Thanks, Ash. Thomas Dye. Good to see you guys. David, everyone, appreciate y'all. I was a little worried there. All right. I think I was on a delay for a second there too. But yeah, Pascal Siakam was a leverage play. Sabonis, I believe B-Dubs had. Another DFS Army coach had as a leverage play. I had some exposure. TJ McConnell, Nora both made a ton of sense once we had the Halliburton news. And then Josh Okogie, most people had a lot of exposure to naturally. He was super chalky yesterday. Him being chalky was worrisome for me. So I was around field weight exposure, but that was enough for me. So yeah, last night was a solid night for me. Congrats to you, Kaboom. Freaking awesome. So close to a takedown. But $1,000 night is a good night in my book. So yeah, and now we'll look at today's slate. I think we have another interesting slate on deck, one that I like a good bit. Only 8 games. We've been blessed by the NBA not giving us too many games at one time, so I'm very appreciative of them for that. But first game on deck, we have the Sixers against the Hornets. And I mean, you guys know what I do here. I always play bigs against the Hornets. Like that's just gonna be what I always do. The concern here of playing Embiid is that the spread is relatively wide. Ideally, Joel Embiid will be low owned. We'll have ownership by the time pre-lock show kicks off. So we'll see what the ownership looks like. If he's under owned because of the spread, he's going to be a leverage play for me. If he's already in that 20 to 30% range, I just want to make sure I'm in that ownership range. Like I want to make sure I'm at least around field weight if he's already around that 20 to 30% number. Per usual, there's quite a few bigs I like on this slate, but Embiid's definitely in my top 3 tonight. Outside of that, once again, we on Monday or Tuesday, I don't remember anymore. We had an exposure minimum on James Harden, and that went well. He made the 100K winning lineup. Once again, I can almost guarantee I'll at least have an exposure minimum on James Harden. I just like his upside in a really soft spot. Similar story for Tyrese Maxey as well. I just want to make sure I have some exposure to him tonight. I like his upside. His price tag is solid, good enough at least. Sim model likes both Maxey and Harden as well too, so that automatically kind of puts me on board. What's been so super disappointing this season is that Terry Rozier has just not become that guy. When LaMelo Ball was out, I was really hoping Terry Rozier would kind of take a little bit more ownership of this team and kind of become a little bit more of a, not even like a superstar, but just a little bit more of a stud. But he just has not been that guy. Kelly Oubre has been a little bit better. But to be honest, the the Hornets just aren't really super exciting for me tonight. I'm okay with some one-off exposures here and there. Like Kelly Oubre is probably the one I'm most comfortable being over the field on, but against the Sixers, just not a spot that I'm super excited about. But since I am forcing exposure to the Sixers, and I want this game to stay a little bit closer and not blow out, that's kind of my reasoning for wanting to dig a little bit deeper and try to find a Hornet to force exposure to tonight. But I'm not certain that's going to happen. But the Sixers I love. I'm going to have exposure to them no matter what, to be honest. All right. Moving on, we have the Wizards against the Cavs. Honestly, I don't not my favorite game on the slate, but I do like the Cavs here. The Wizards are healthy. The only Wizard I play when everyone's healthy is Bradley Beal, in this whose price tag has gone up a little bit, but not enough still. Maybe eventually they'll price him more appropriately, like 8,600, 8,800, something like that. Maybe even in he's been very consistent. He's been a staple in the $100,000 winning lineup for a while. The sim model still likes him. I'm willing to go right back to him here tonight. Ideally, he's not super high owned. That'll make me feel a little bit better about making him a leverage play, but we'll have to see what we get on the pre-lock show. But Bradley Beal is one of those guys I'm going to have exposure to tonight no matter what. Oh, man. These Cavs have not been kind to us lately. Jared Allen is still out. Garland burned. If I'm remembering correctly, Garland did not have a great night the last few slates. But I'm going back to him here. Sim model likes him. He's still only 7,400. He still sees an increasing usage rate when Jared Allen is out. That hasn't proven to be the case over the last couple of slates, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to ignore the previous data. So I'm going to go right back to Darius Garland. Ideally, I don't have to have that much of him to make him a leverage play, but we'll see what happens once we get ownership. But Garland's really the main guy I'm interested in here. The Wizards still aren't a great rebounding team, so you can make an argument for Mobley. I personally don't plan on having a lot of exposure to Mobley tonight, mostly because I love quite a few bigs. But if something starts to pop for Mobley, like as I do more research throughout the day, I would transition to making him a power forward only eligible play for me, just because I really don't want him to be in that center spot for me tonight. This game does have the lowest game total on the slate, and so by nature is also a game I just don't want too much exposure to. Cool. All right. Moving on, we have the Golden State Warriors against the Atlanta Hawks. Draymond Green is out for this game. He's suspended, for those of you that don't know. Everyone else is healthy. I mean, outside of Andrew Wiggins, who's been out for a while now. The only guy who really stood out for me in my initial research earlier today was Dante DiVincenzo. At 5,500, he sees an increasing usage with Draymond Green out. He also should be a little bit more involved in the offense. He's already a pretty large component, but at 5,500, I like his upside. The sim model likes him as well, so he's on my radar. I definitely want to see where his ownership falls because it wouldn't shock me if he's relatively popular on this slate, but I like him here. Of course, like Kevin Looney and Kuminga should see more consistent minutes here tonight with Draymond Green out. I think we're expecting Kuminga to start in this spot too. It's always interesting for me. I feel like Coach Kerr for the Warriors freaking hates Kevin Looney. And so I feel like Kevin Looney never sees enough run, and so that always gives me some hesitation. Like in the playoffs, we loved Looney last year because he was freaking crushing. But in the regular season, he just typically doesn't see that run. But with Draymond Green out, I'm willing to take the shot. I'm hoping Kerr doesn't try to just play ridiculously small all game or something like that. And he gives Looney the run he deserves, because if that happens, then Looney's in a good spot tonight, along with Kuminga. I think they're both viable plays. We've seen JaMychal Green be a little sneaky in these spots too, so we can't forget about him, but not a guy I'm super excited about. No worries, Ash, man. Enjoy your day. Have a good weekend, man. Appreciate you showing up for a little bit and supporting the team here. All right, guys. And that's his team. DiVincenzo's the main guy who I'm looking at for hopefully a little bit of a sneaky play. But Looney and Kuminga are the guys I think most people will be on, and I think that those are viable plays on this slate today that I plan on having exposure to. For the Hawks, you guys know I don't like playing the Hawks when they're healthy. It doesn't always work out for me. I do think the Warriors are a god awful offense or defense, and there could be some sneaky spots here. Clint Capella definitely stands out. We've been playing bigs against the Warriors all year at 6,000. Like, he definitely stands out as a potential sneaky play, but he doesn't. Like I said earlier, I like so many bigs. He just doesn't rank as high for me as some of the other guys. Trae Young has proven he can break any slate. He's been in much better form lately. So I think there's definitely an argument to be made. To be honest, he's not going to be the stud that I'm paying up for tonight. If the domination station puts him in a few of my lines, I'm fine with it, but I'm not going to force exposure to him. I want to play DeJounte Murray, but he just hasn't been doing well recently. So it's hard for me to make a case for it outside of relatively low ownership and a nice matchup. Let's see what the sim model thinks about him. Okay, it has some interest. It likes someone else a little bit more than him in that price range. And um, we'll get to that game soon. Also a similar position. So it's a little bit hard to value him over CJ, but uh, it definitely is a potential sneaky play. We'll see what ownership looks like. Like, if it's only like 2%, which I doubt, we could just do like a 5-6% min and have some decent leverage there. All right, y'all. Next up, we have the Timberwolves against the Chicago Bulls. So for the Timberwolves tonight, we have the situation I feel like we always freaking have with them. Rudy Gobert and Naz Reid are questionable. Who knows if Rudy Gobert is going to play tonight? If he plays, he's viable. If he doesn't play, we play Naz Reid. If Naz Reid is out, then it makes Rudy Gobert a more secure play because they just don't have too many big options available. I also think that would be a little bit of a boost for Jaden McDaniels as well, but primarily, I think Rudy Gobert is in a solid spot here once again. Anthony Edwards isn't really on my radar tonight, but depending on ownership, I might be able to get talked into it, but not my favorite spot for him just based off of the matchup against the Bulls and his price tag. Just not my favorite spot personally. But yeah, not really a game I'm looking to attack with too much tonight, to be honest, guys. There's obviously viable plays here, but the Bulls are a solid defensive team, and I feel like everyone's priced pretty appropriately with everyone being pretty healthy here. For the Bulls, another team that's pretty healthy. Alex Caruso is questionable. That's a pretty big deal. We've seen that have a pretty big impact on this team before. Also, I forgot, going back to that Cleveland game, if we don't get any injury news, Ricky Rubio is looking like a solid value on this slate. Not my favorite value because Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland are playing. I prefer to play Rubio when one of them are out, but if we're desperate for value tonight, I don't hate it. That was random, but that just kind of popped back into my head for some reason. But yeah, Caruso's questionable. If he's out, it just gives the backcourt a little bit more consistency when it comes to minutes. So it makes them slightly more playable, but I like other guards a bit more than this team tonight. The only guy that's really on my radar here is Nikola Vucevic at $8,000. I like his upside in this spot. Ideally, he would be relatively low owned, but again, this is another big that I'm wanting at least exposure to. But ideally, I'll be over the field on Vucevic tonight. All right. Next up, we have the Pelicans. We already looked at the sim model. You saw how much it likes CJ McCollum, a pretty good bit. And the Pelicans are relatively healthy. Jose Alvarado's still out. Zion Williamson's still out, but none of that really matters at this point. But CJ McCollum, 7,700, matchup against the god-awful Rockets. Priced pretty appropriately. Wouldn't shock me if he's pretty popular tonight. But I do think the spread's pretty close too. So I feel solid with CJ McCollum. We know he can definitely put on his invisible cloak sometimes and just be irrelevant. But if he is aggressive and stays involved in this game, I think he definitely has some upside here. Same story with Brandon Ingram. Two guys I definitely want to have exposure to tonight. I don't think they're going to be low owned or sneaky, but if they were, that would be awesome. And then they would be leverage plays, but we'll just have to wait and see what their ownership looks like later today. But those are two guys that I will have exposure to tonight. Outside of that, I don't really like the other pieces here for the Pelicans tonight. We'll see if someone stands out later, but as of right now, I'm not a fan. The Rockets, man, the Kevin Porter Jr., Jabari Smith, Jalen Green, like these guys have been sneaking into the $100,000 winning lineup a few times, so they're definitely not unplayable. They definitely can bring some upside to the table, and they're not too expensive. The thing I don't like about the Rockets is just the matchup. I don't like to pick on the Pelicans too often. I also just don't like playing the Rockets when no one else is really out. So, like I said, there's a case to be made here. Like these guys have proven they can have upside, but I don't like the matchup, and I don't really like these guys. So, they're not guys I'm going to force in the lines. I'm not Xing them out of my player pool because that's just not my play style. So if the domination station gives me exposure, I'll just make sure that I'm not over the field on these guys. And for me, that means I'll limit their exposure maximums if I get too much of them. I don't do that now because if the domination station likes someone, I ask and I dig a little bit deeper into why does it like them, and then I can get talked into it that way. But as of right now, not a fan. Next up, we have the Memphis Grizzlies against the San Antonio Spurs. Biggest thing here. Wait. First thing, the one time I don't have Jaren Jackson Jr. as a leverage play, he broke the slate. Was that semi-frustrating? It would have been more frustrating if Jaren Jackson Jr. hasn't had other stealing performances throughout the season, but that did hurt a little bit. I was like, that's my guy. Like, I should have played him. But with that being said, I like the Grizzlies tonight. Just like the Pelicans, they're facing a god-awful defense, but the biggest difference here is that the spread is still pretty wide. Uh, but I think these guys are very viable and playable tonight. Bane's decent. Love Jaren Jackson Jr. Hope he's not too popular. Really like Tyus Jones at 6,700 tonight. Xavier Tillman's fine, but I'm not trying to prioritize him over some of the other bigs I have exposure to. But more than likely, just because he projects so well, I'll probably have some exposure. So Bane, Jackson Jr., Tyus Jones, I like. If I had to rank them, I would put Jaren Jackson Jr. and Tyus Jones above everybody from this team. So yeah, I like these guys. They're cheap. Matchups fantastic. We don't know about ownership. Hopefully it's low, but I doubt it. Jake LaRavia's out for them. Vince Williams Jr.'s out. John Morant's still out for that suspension. That's really why you're seeing guys like Jackson, Bane, Tillman pop a bit more because their usage rate is increasing. Their scoring is increasing. There's a lot of good things going for this team, and the matchup against the Spurs just makes it even better. So hopefully they can spread the love around enough where they can all get there, but that is also a concern I have. The Spurs. Spurs aren't really a lot of fun when they're healthy. Devontae Graham is out. That's probably the only news that really matters here. Romeo Langford's out. Keita Bates-Diop is questionable. If Keita Bates-Diop plays, I have a lot less interest in this team tonight. Like even less than I already have. As of right now, Trey Jones projects decently well, which I'm okay with that. Like I'm okay with having a little bit of Trey Jones with Devontae Graham out. It should just solidify his minutes a little bit. Trey Jones should not be starting tonight, though. He will be coming off the bench. So again, usually not a kind of guy I want to force exposure to, but if he's in a few lines, I'm fine with that. Jeremy Sachan, I'm usually trying to force exposure to if Keldon Johnson or Devin Vassell's out. If that's not the case, I don't really force the issue. If I have some, I have some. And that's really my feeling for all of these Spurs tonight. If we don't get any injury news outside of Keita Bates-Diop, I'm not forcing exposure here. I feel like they're all priced pretty appropriately. Matchup's fine. Not one that I'm really gunning for. So just not a team I'm forcing exposure to tonight. This game does have the second highest total. So that's part of why I like the Memphis Grizzlies a lot as well. I think most people will be focusing their lineups around the Warriors and Hawks, which I will be doing too, but being over the field to like the Pelicans, Sixers, Grizzlies, and these last two games, I think will help me be different enough to still have some success tonight. Next up, we have the Celtics. For the Celtics, big news here. Big news. Jason Tatum is questionable. Big, expensive guy, high usage player, and their team is facing a bad defense in the Portland Trailblazers. This could be a gold mine potentially if Tatum actually ends up getting ruled out. Robert Williams is already out. I think the guy that most people forget about, but we didn't last time that Jason Tatum was out, was Grant Williams and Jaylen Brown. We forced exposure to both of them. But in all transparency, if Tatum ends up getting ruled out, I'm going to have more Williams. Smart is already projecting well, but I'll have even more of him. Al Horford, I'll force exposure to, and then Jaylen Brown, we might not. It depends on how soon we get the Tatum news, but I'll be significantly over the field of wherever the projected ownership is if Tatum is out. If Tatum plays, Marcus Smart's really the only guy that as of right now, I foresee having exposure to. I don't hate taking a few shots on Jason Tatum here in a pretty soft matchup, but that's a little bit more risky, a little more frisky. We'll see if we're willing to do that by the pre-lock show. It's a little gutsy. And then for the Trailblazers, we have Damian Lillard listed as probable. Jeremy Grant is questionable. That's a big deal. Baji's been out. Winslow's been out for a while here. We know that this team is much more playable when Grant is out. We've seen Lillard have better performances. We've seen where is he? Probably in exclusions. We've seen Watford have stronger performances if Grant's out. Another guy is like Reddish would become slightly more viable as well, especially if he ends up starting, which he typically would in this position. I think those would be the guys that I focus on primarily. The hard part is, though, that this is a pretty tough matchup against the Celtics. So again, not a team I like to pick on too much. If we got the Grant news early and the Portland Trailblazers were super chalky, I would try to I would still have exposure to it, probably still be around field weight, but it wouldn't be a spot I try to go over the field on. I would try to pivot and find other value. But with that being said, if we get the Grant news relatively late and the ownership and people aren't able to adjust to it and or they're not going to late swap to it, then I will take the shots on Reddish and Watford and have more Lillard, things of that sort. So for me, it's just very scenario based. Depends on the way things play out tonight. But definitely a team that's viable, but more interesting if Grant is out. If Grant plays, I'm not forcing exposure to these guys tonight unless something pops as we do research. But I don't plan on forcing exposure to them. Another big questionable tag for the Mavericks. We have Luka Doncic listed as out. Kyrie Irving's listed as questionable. I think everyone knows how important Kyrie Irving playing or not playing is for this team. Jaden Hardy has been in the Nuts lineup every single time Irving has been out over the last week. And it wouldn't surprise me if he does that once again in a matchup against the Lakers. If Irving plays, he's super viable tonight. He leads the team in usage when Doncic is out. So that Irving news matters a lot. Ideally, we get it early, but we don't always get what we need. Kyrie Irving is expensive, so hopefully his ownership's not too high. But if he plays, I'm going to be over the field on him. That's just the way it's going to be today. Tim Hardaway Jr. is questionable. That's also a pretty big deal. He has the third highest usage rate on this team when Doncic is out. He's burned us a few times here recently, but he's another guy that if he plays tonight, I'm going to have exposure to him. I don't know if I'll be over the field, but I will at least force a man on him if he plays tonight. And then, like I said, if Irving's out, we play Hardy and Josh Green again. Hopefully Josh Green is low owned like he was last time. And then Markieff Morris and JaVale McGee are also questionable. Care a little bit less about that. We did see Christian Wood hit the Nuts lineup last time out. He has a matchup against the Lakers, which is a team we've been playing bigs against for a while. So there's definitely a case to be made there, but I don't know if I can prioritize Christian Wood over the other bigs I like on this slate. Mostly because Christian Wood has all the talent in the world. He definitely has the upside, but he just doesn't see uh, a ton of minutes consistently. So like we only have him projected for around 23 minutes tonight, and it's just hard for a 6,700 guy to be super efficient the entire game to get there on 23 minutes. He can. He definitely is capable of it. It's just not super likely. So not a guy I'm forcing a ton of exposure to tonight. But I'm okay with him showing up in my lines too. And then another big I love on this slate is my guy Anthony Davis. The Mavericks have been god awful against bigs all year. The only concern earlier in the season was really just their pace of play, but that's been changing slightly. So really like Anthony Davis tonight, right there alongside Joel Embiid for me. Those are like my top two centers, the two that might not be my highest owned centers, but the two guys I'm going to have the most leverage on tonight. So I love the spot for them. Anthony Davis has been okay. He hasn't really been fantastic over the last few games, but I still love Davis here tonight. D'Angelo Russell, like him a bit less. Is it because he burned us on the last slate? I don't think so. He's pretty expensive, and the matchup's fine against the Mavericks, but not one that I'm just really trying to pick on too much. I think there's other guards who are cheaper who should surpass the amount of fantasy points he gets tonight. So that's kind of why I got there. I'm not bitter, I promise, or at least I hope I'm not just in denial. Dave, appreciate you, man. Yes, hit the like, share, and subscribe button. All of that just, shows that you support the channel, shows and helps us figure out if we should keep doing this show, things of that sort. So always appreciate the support. So like I said, the Lakers are pretty healthy. LBJ's out, LeBron James, Mo Bamba's out. They've both been out for a while, so that doesn't really change anything for me, but it's really just this matchup that I love for Anthony Davis, so I'm going to be over the field to him. So that's this slate in a nutshell, guys. I'm really high on the Sixers. I'm going to have a lot of exposure to the Warriors-Hawks game. We have a little bit of Vucevic there in that Bulls game. I love the Pelicans. I love the Memphis Grizzlies. The Celtics could be a little interesting if they have injury news go the right way. Similar story with the Portland Trailblazers and the Mavericks. So a very interesting slate. Not boring at all. Looking forward to seeing how things go. But like I said, appreciate you all for sticking around. I look forward to seeing you all later today on the Pre-Lock Show. Have a good one. Peace out. Bye, guys.